Welcome to the Think Generational Wealth podcast, episode number 54. And I am your host, Amir Estimo. And thank you for taking the time. I always like to start off with thanks and appreciate. I think appreciate sometimes is a lost art form, but for me, I really do appreciate anybody that takes the time to listen to this podcast because honestly, there's two things in this world that is really hard for people to give up. It's their time and money. So anybody that gives up their time, you hope to put some type of content together that's they're going to enjoy. Maybe take action or take action and help hopefully inspires them. So anybody that listens to this podcast, I do appreciate it. Do your boy a favor and leave a podcast review, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, and then leave a review. Leave a. I just like to hear content. I just like to hear the feedback because whether it's good or bad, it's only going to make you better, and it's okay. And I think it's okay for people to have different opinion, but it's okay. It's always good to get that feedback. So thank you very much on that. And also, today's episode is I was actually looking at the stats of my podcast. I really don't look at it as often. I look at it probably maybe once a week, to be real honest, because I don't think it's really about the numbers. This is my personal opinion, but I don't think it's about the numbers. I think it's about the content. Because the thing about podcasts is what people don't get sometimes is that you can have maybe 100 downloads, but it's really how long people are listening to. So if you have a hour podcast and people are quit listening at 30 minutes, then that means you may need to make some adjustments or whatever, and that's your content or maybe the length of the podcast. And that's why for me, I like to keep my podcast anywhere between 25, 30 minutes, unless I really find that content useful. And I don't, because I think at the end of the day, people want to, it really just comes down to the content. But also, people want, within that 25, 30-minute range, you hope you have something good. And we're all busy. We're all busy. So if ever that content were to extend to at least an hour, it has to be something that I think that I find of really value, and I don't want to just waste people's time. But that's the thing about podcasts, and I was looking at my numbers, and I said to myself, I was looking at it, and my podcast is coming on 2 years. I started this podcast October 28th, 2019. So that's 2 years. So I'm on 54 episodes, and some people would quit because I was looking at my numbers, and I'll share this with you. And I think it's good to be candid. And my downloads were anywhere between 25 to 30, and that's actually I remember I was talking to a coach, and he mentioned that it's actually not. And at the time, my podcast was around 10 downloads, and to see that it's double. The key thing, I'm still curious to wonder how long people are listening, because that's only going to help me get better as I continue this podcast growth. And I know my podcast probably could have gone even much longer, but things happen in life, and you realize is this something you really enjoy doing, then you continue doing it. And podcasting, I continue enjoy doing it because I believe there's so much information out there, and there is a group of people that do have the same mindset. So if anybody is listening to the podcast, whatever for whatever reason, there's probably something I'm saying that you can relate to. So that's the thing about it is finding those people that have the same mindset. That's why I think it's good sometimes to share certain things that's going through your life. Maybe not all of it, but at least you give people a glimpse and okay, this person can relate to me. If I was to ever meet him in person, that he can maybe empathize or we have the same mindset of what we want to do in life. And I'll be honest with you, I do have a corporate job. I do have one. And and I have side gigs too. I'm just like you. And when I started this podcast, I used to always wonder, do I have anything to offer that people are going to listen to? I always thought that. Do I have anything to offer that people are going to listen to? Do you have to be a public figure to start a podcast? Do you have to be someone of a that has a certain status in society to start a podcast? And hopefully this inspires you. If there's something that you want to do, I'm sorry, if there's something that you want to do, then you will do it, whether it's starting a podcast, starting a business, taking that course, investing, whatever that is to you, you can take action and do it. And I feel like even if you want to start a podcast, that should be something you can do. Don't you just have to worry about the content. People want to listen to good content. And so today's episode, I'm sorry I went on that long tangent, but I just think that was something that was on my mind beginning this podcast. And just looking at my numbers and seeing them, like 25, 30 downloads on the average episode, that's so much appreciated. And I'm grateful for that because when I started a podcast, I just wanted to start and share information. And I don't, and I look at, the reason I don't look at my numbers very often too is I don't want to make it about the numbers. I want to make it about the content. I want when someone listens to this podcast, they enjoy the content, as I said earlier. So the reason instead of being on this tangent is I heard this quote a few years ago, and it's by Rick Ross. Some of you know he's a businessman, a rapper, sort of an actor, entrepreneur. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, appreciate your position while you plot your promotion. And it was something that was really, I was like, appreciate your position while you plot your promotion. So, in some form and somehow, if you're listening to this podcast, whether it's a job you have or whatever you're doing, the time you're doing it, your corporate job, appreciate your position, but plot your promotion. And the reason I say that is I recently took a course, and I've been taking a course, and I believe the best investment is the stock symbol. If you guys ever want to look it up, check it out. It's a really high performing stock. YOU. You. You are your best investment. That stock, if you invest in that stock, that probably can get you some of the highest returns you ever get in life. So I took a course, and the course, I it's a new tech course, it's a new language, it's a new skill set that I'm learning. Because I'll share this with you guys is me currently have a corporate job, but actually my next role I really want to get into is I want to get into more so of a consultant role. I realize these, especially in the tech industry, if you're in the tech industry, you will know this, you could probably relate to this, is that things change so rapidly. And if you don't keep up with the changes, then you become a dinosaur, then you become expendable, which in any job, you're expendable. But yeah, I had to go invest in myself again. And there's nights I'm up 2, 3 in the morning here in the States, wherever you listen to this podcast. And I had to realize I had the last time I did this, because this is not my first rodeo, this is my second time taking a course, an accelerated course at that. And I had to quit my job. I had to quit my job. But this time, having family and kids, you can't really make that type of life changing decision. You got to make sure you're in a good position to do that because we have bills and bills don't stop. They don't care if you work or not, you got to pay them bills. So at the end of the day, I had to go back and invest in myself because I realized years ago I have went to the I don't like using the word boss. I don't know why. It just feels I'm not a big fan of it. So if you ever hear me say the word boss in this podcast, it may be maybe me saying something to the nature of you know how certain rappers they refer to themselves as a boss, something like that. But never really I would call someone a boss. I'll call my manager, but not a boss. Anywho, so I happened to went to the you know how you have your annual review and you know you get pretty good bonus, but then you don't get a raise. So I realized the first year I was like, okay, I understand this is corporate America, but year number two, you use that same excuse, something's wrong. This is where I said, you know what, I'm appreciate where I'm at, but you know what, it's time to make a move. So that's why I went to take a course. So now I can plan my next move. I am planning my promotion, but I am appreciating where I'm at because in a time that people are losing their jobs left and right, what we've been through in the last 2 years, and I'm probably dating myself, but I haven't seen this since I've never seen something to this nature where it's just weird. We're wearing masks and all that. We're bickering back and forth over vaccinated or not to vaccinate. Listen, there's two things you will never hear me really discuss on a podcast because I think it's very controversial. It's politics and religion. I'm not a big fan of those, so don't ever expect me to have any of those conversations here. I may share stuff on a spiritual, but never to the point where it's religious or political. Because I just think excuse me, those are two very controversial topics. And that's what I had to say to myself. That's why that quote came back to me. Appreciate your position while you plot your promotion. I appreciate it, but we're not going to have this same conversation again because next year I don't plan on being here. That's what I've put into my mind. And that's how you have to think in life. If you have a job, you may not like where you're at, or you may like your job, but if there's no advancement, no one's going to give you a raise. A business is not going to give you a raise. They have to watch out for themselves too. There's certain budgets they have to hit, and I understand that. And I understand that it's business, and I understand that. And that's why you keep that relationship business. So now, instead of me complaining, I said, you know what? There's something I'm not doing for me to not get what I want. So, you know what? It's time to make a move. So, took a course, and that's what I'm saying that is appreciate your position while you plot your promotion because you may be doing a job you don't like. You may be doing something, but appreciate it. But don't sit there and not plot your promotion. And that could be starting a side gig, that can be taking a course, that can be going back to school. It don't matter what age you are. The brain never stops learning. The day you stop learning is the day you die. And I'm sorry to really go there, but it's the truth. It's really the truth. I've seen 80-year-olds still learn. You still have to learn. You gotta learn and implement. And that's where I'm at. And there's night, I remember one night, I almost was like, this is intense. Dealing with work, family, and then you gotta come here and stay up late night. But the one thing I realized too is if I'm gonna put 6, 7, 8 hours at my job, I can do that into my goals, into my promotion. I can do that. So whether you want to or not, you can plot your promotion. No one's going to give it to you. And that's why that quote makes perfect sense. Appreciate your position while you plot your promotion. It makes perfect sense. So hopefully this episode inspires you. And I just wanted to share that with you. It was just on my head. This is something I just thought about. And I was saying to myself, I have to appreciate where I'm at because there's so much going on. But I'm in charge of my promotion. So that's the next goal for me, and to continue recording on podcasts. And it's something I've been thinking about doing on the podcast is doing a quote. I like maybe 1 week in the month, do like a quote a day. A short episode. It won't be no more than 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Hopefully someone listens to it, it inspires someone and it turns your day around because I like quotes. Quotes to me make you think. They're good for depending on depending on what quote. So you gotta be careful. It's not all quotes are good, but something I've been thinking about doing. I want to test it out on a podcast and see what feedback it gives. Still record the weekly episodes, but probably on that day, let's say it's Wednesdays, always drop a podcast. Then we can that day you'll get the regular podcast and the quote of the day. So I want to try that out. I want to see. I think having a podcast it gives you an opportunity to test and see what your people like, your audience likes, and and if it doesn't work out, that's fine. At least you tried it. Maybe test it out a while. So I'll leave you with today's quote. Instead of looking at the past, I put myself ahead 20 years and try to look at what I need to do now in order to get there then. Diana Ross. Until next time, thank you again. Leave a rate and review the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast. Share it. Get the word out. Much love.